And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. So we're back here at the Big Fish, Little Fish podcast. We're going to be going over a few things. Today, the Teo and I we thought we'd make this podcast about solutions. Solutions that have come to us as we've looked at certain problems in America. And first, before we get into any solutions, we'd like to say thank you to all the listeners who've stayed with us for 8 whole episodes, and all the people who, although they haven't seen the long form, they have watched some of our shorter form content and helped us get a few more subscribers, a few more followers.
And I do think there's a few diehard long form viewers out there too, and for those people in particular, those are our ride or dies, and big shout out to you too.
One day we'll do an event for all of our long term. You can prove you've been here long term, baby. You'll come to an exclusive event if we ever get that big. So hopefully we can keep this train rolling.
The little foreshadowing right there.
Foreshadowing. But hey, so our first topic today.
Before we even get into the topic, I agree. One of the things I think people do in general too much is it's a lot of complaining. Lord knows I complain a lot, but the problem is I think we've turned into too many things where we complain and we don't actually think about like, okay, well, here's a problem, but how do we get to a solution? So that's why I really am excited about this episode, is because we looked at things that we found problems with, but it's not just about complaining about them. We're going to try to think of solutions because that's what really solves stuff. So anyway, you can kick it off.
Yeah.
I do think that it's like something different and more people should be doing.
Yeah. And to piggyback off that, you see a lot of shows of people complaining and they're like, oh, America should do this, or this politician should do that, or this state should do this, or this business should do this. But they don't offer a solution. So we're not think tank experts, but we have some ideas. So Teo, talk to us about our first issue that you'd like to address. And this is a 2-parter. And give us some more thoughts to the original problem that you brought up on social media. So take us off, Ma.
Yeah, so this is going to be a build-off from episode 7 where we talked about congressional trading. And for those who didn't get to see it, basically, when I started doing research into congressional trading, I was a bit mind-blown about kind of how rampant it is that our Congress, both the state and House of Representatives side, are actively trading, and there are so many individuals who you would think are going to be focused on being civil servants, figuring out policies, figuring out things to do, and it really just seems like they were just spending half their time trying to increase their net worth. So I remember there are some crazy stats that I came up with and things that I was showing. The one that still sticks to my mind is that $355 million worth of stocks were traded in the year 2022. So like, to me, that's a problem in and of itself. So we got through the complaining side. We said Congress is trading too much. Actually, on one of the posts we did, I think we saw pretty universal support of different degrees of how do we stop this? They shouldn't be doing it in the first place. Like, I didn't see a lot of comments or feedback where anyone was supporting congressional trading. So what I wanted to do was come up with a solution rather than complain. Come up with something that I think could be bipartisan, where both groups are like in favor of it, that everyone would be on board for. So I came up with some stuff. But before I even get into that, I have ideas, but I'm even going to open the floor to you. You haven't put as much background research into this topic specifically, but is there anything you know offhand that you were like, if I was going to be addressing this problem, what are your solutions? I'm interested in what you have.
I mean, if we're going your direction and we're just barring Congress from being able to trade, then I think that kind of just speaks for itself. Like I mentioned in the episode before, I thought they would make sense to let Congress trade, and I'm not super for that. Like, I'm not somebody who's going to protest for Congress' right to trade, but I did think to myself, if they were going to be able to do it, it should be something where it's live and people should be able to see it happen, because they're in such a special place in government and of authority over everyone's lives, because they're literally making decisions for the whole country. So it should be more transparent, and the deadline should be way more stringent. I've seen situations and articles where congressmen are filing the disclosures of their tax, or not taxes, but their stock trades kind of late. And I just think it should be live. And I think that could be something that could just create transparency. So people who are voting for different people in Congress could see, okay, like, what do they say on camera, but like where does their money go? And that was my thought process. I still can go either way with it. I don't feel super strongly on that. I also don't feel super strongly on completely blocking them off. But I think I saw that, and like I said, I didn't do as much research. I'm not as well versed on the topic, but I think I did see that, this like buying shares and stocks was some form of it's been addressed before and it's been allowed. So, and I think it was allowed by the Supreme Court.
And to resurface it was allowed based on them only trading on public information, not private insider information. And that's where, when I was talking about it last time, I was getting pretty riled up, because
in theory,
I was like, it's inherently built in that they're going to have insider trading, because they are taking decisions and voting on things that are the direction of America.
Yeah.
And that direction of America, I would say, is inherently insider trading. So that was where we had that back and forth a bit, but I get what you're saying.
And for people who don't know exactly how politics works, sometimes when you're in Congress, although you do spend a lot of time, working on helping out your constituents, you do spend some time kind of going back to our consulting episode, playing the game, right? Where you're over here and you may talk to other Congress members or other people who are in the know on the Hill, and you'll kind of get a feeling for what is and what isn't going to pass as legislation through Congress.
Before it happens.
And so yes, before the public may be aware. So that is where the danger lies. That's where Teo's biggest concern is, and I share his concern as well. And I think it is something to consider, and that's why this isn't a topic I feel very strong over. Like, I have to protest this in any place, but it's something to consider. So it is a great point.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying, and what you're almost saying is, I think, the more iterative step based off what's already out there, which is you're saying, hey, if I'm hearing you correct, you're like, hey, clearly they're going to have some information, but they should have their ability to trade, and maybe the Supreme Court has made a ruling on it to the point where they're saying, they're allowed to have legally the right to trade, but it needs to be real time, so there aren't these delays, and they're not if they're doing something shady, we'd be able to see it a little sooner. So I get that, but I do think I feel a little stronger about it, where I think that we need more drastic measures implemented to stop this, because I think that on one sense there's the tactical side of, hey, Congress is doing shady things, or how are they moving about this, or what information are they trading off of, and then I think there's the more, I guess, I don't know what the word is, ideological perspective, but it's they shouldn't be focused on this at all. Whether they're doing it on insider information or public information, they're civil servants. They are voted by the people to represent the people, and the highest office in America. And that's where I was talking about last time, where it's this should be where they're focused on, is passing laws and policies and things that are the best for Americans. The thought of how can I profit off this shouldn't even be in their head. If they were true civil servants, had good intentions, were purely serving the American people, they wouldn't be focused on trading at all in the first place. So that's why I'm a little more open to the concept of, hey, let's put in stricter regulations and stricter rule sets to make sure that they're not even in a position so that they can do trading. So that was my thought process of why I have some rules, and I have some rules. But any thoughts on that?
You know what's funny about that? How you say there should, as you think about it, there should be stricter regulations. Congress is so excited to put regulations on everything except their own stock trading. They're so quick to pull the gun on think of any industry and they want regulation for it. Crypto, they want regulation. Stock market, not to do with them, but with anybody else, regulation.
Yep.
Transportation, regulate. The automakers, regulation. You pick an industry. They want to regulate it. They want to regulate it. And that's both sides, low key. Like, Republicans act like they don't want to regulate things. They want to regulate things. They want to. And Eugene, if you have a moment, double check me on that. Has the Supreme Court ever made a ruling on Congress stock trading? Because I think I saw that, but I didn't do the research. So if you could just pull that up and just give us a heads up on what they said, and then maybe we can make a second decision on it if we actually see what the Supreme Court ruled and why they ruled on it. Because usually they have an opinion on it.
Yes, and it's funny you mentioned the regulation things because that ties into one of our other topics we're going to talk about today. And I think, spoiler alert, regulations is kind of the downfall of that industry. But at the exact same time, you're so right. They want to regulate everything to death, but then they won't regulate themselves on trying to profit off of trading, which is, if there was evidence of corruption, it would be that. They're self-benefiting rather than benefiting the people, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
So while Eugene's looking it up, maybe you can come at it.
They'll even regulate New York pizza. It's like anything they can get their hands on to regulate, they'll regulate it. But I digress. I apologize. Go ahead, buddy.
No, you're good. You're good. But I think Americans can agree on one thing, and that there's corruption in the government. If there's one thing we're all on the same page of, something's not right. We're talking about whether Congress should trade or not, but by and large, when I hear back from most people, when you talk to most people, we're all on the same page. We don't want our politicians trading. So I was like, what are things that I can do or things that I would recommend can be done to stop this problem? Because everyone's on the same page, but it's not getting done. So I came up with 5 things, 5 simple rules on how to stop Congress from trading. 1, Congress can no longer purchase individual stocks. 2, Congress can never short the market. Because when you short the market, you're betting against the market. And if there's a politician out there who's betting against the market, you're betting against America, and that should never be allowed. They only want America to do better, so if they're shorting the market, not allowed. 3, no foreign investments. If you are investing in anything other than America, as an American politician, you are opening the door for corruption and potentially treason. So no foreign investments. 4, if you want Congress to be able to allow to kind of bridge the gap, they can only invest in market ETFs, and that's long-term holdings of just buying into the market of America, and maybe it'll incentivize some of them to start making America better and profiting that way, as opposed to insider trading on stocks. And 5, all of the rules mentioned before apply to the immediate family of Congress. When I thought about it in my brain, I said, keep it simple. Make 5 rules for what the bill is, and let's pass a bill. So I put it on paper, and I said, the Congress trading bill. Okay? 5 rules. Why doesn't Congress put this on a bill, propose it in the House of Representatives, and then propose it in the Senate and pass it? I feel like all you hear about is Congress not being able to agree on things. And I think part of the reason that happens, honestly, is because when you hear about these bills getting proposed, they're 1,400 pages long. I don't know if half of our senators and House of Delegates can even read in the first place. And if they can, they're not reading 1,400 pages, and they're not reading 1,400 pages in a night when they have to review it before they vote. I don't know what's happened in politics where this has become a thing, where they put together these massive bills where you're voting on one thing, and then when you read the fine print, you have like 20 other things that are included in the bill. But to me, that's part of the problem. When you're trying to sneak things in to get laws passed, you're showing that you have ulterior motives. Make it simple, okay? And make it so it's something everyone can understand. 5 rules on congressional trading, make it a bill, put it on the House floor, and make them vote. And the people who aren't voting for this, then those people being represented by that person will then have to look at them and say, hey, why did you vote no on that bill when it was 5 things that we all agree on? And it really exposes them. It shines light on them. And at the same time, I think that it simplifies government. More can get processed quicker when we're voting on what we're voting on, as opposed to trying to siphon through 6,000 things they're trying to include in one bill. The Congressional No Trading Bill, make it simple, make it easy. What do you think about that?
1, I love that. Let me see that. We see that. This is my podcast. I do what I want. Look at this. Look at this. You know what I love about this? A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't know this. I'll get you sharp if you don't know this. A lot of bills are hundreds, sometimes even 1,000-page long.
Yes.
And these congressmen aren't reading it. And we pass this on for as a one-pager. Everybody in America can read this, and they will know what is the point of this bill. And we're not adding nothing in here, man. It's 5 things. I love this tale. Great job. Great job on this. I love it. No purchase of individual stocks. Never short the market. Look that up if you don't know what that means. No foreign investments. Can only purchase market ETFs. Easy to follow. I love it. Rules to apply to immediate family. You can't just tell your husband. I don't know. Or wife or whatever. But it's the type of thing. I love this. This is great. This is great.
You know what made me think of this, though? This is what made me think of it. I was thinking about the fact that how long is the Constitution, Miguel?
Like the original one?
The original Constitution.
The original one? Oh, wait. I'll be honest. I feel like I could be wrong on this. And this is sad because I'm a poli-sci major. But I feel like it's like 1 page long.
That's the point.
I feel like it is.
The Constitution is 4,543 words. 1 page. This is the Constitution, the document that is literally the guiding light for all of America. And we made it simple enough, or our founding fathers made it simple enough that it could be read and understood on 1 page. The Declaration of Independence, a little bit longer, 3 to 4 pages. It's 1,300 words. If our founding fathers were literally mapping out the rules for the country in 1 page, why can't we do that for all of our bills, which are supposed to be rulings on a specific topic? They're running the country on 1 page, and we're writing 1,400 pages for a law. It doesn't make sense. There's corruption, and they're using divisive tactics to make sure that people can't understand it. Keep it simple. 1 page laws, 5 rules, put it on the floor, vote on it.
Impromptu idea, because we're just spitting right now, and I just got to put it out there. I go for an idea. If you're a congressman and you're voting on a bill you haven't read, that shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah.
Like the fact that people vote on bills they haven't read, they don't know what's in it. Like they may know like the major point of the bill, but there's like some side stuff in there for different funding, and they don't know what's on it. That shouldn't be allowed. Like, you haven't read it? What do you mean?
How are you voting on it?
How are you voting on it?
And there should be another rule. Now we're just building off of it. There should be a time limit as to how much time you need to give them to read it. I can't tell you, and maybe most Americans don't know this, but if you actually look into it, a lot of times the bills are proposed within like 24 hours of the vote. Even if they wanted to read it, there's not enough hours. You have to read 1,400 pages of minute legal jargon and in 24 hours vote on whether you agree with it or not. There's no time to analyze it. There's no time to process it. They're just literally sneaking stuff in and then trying to vote on it. It's like the system has gotten so out of control that there's these people in the back end just like sneaking stuff in, and I don't know who those people are because I am 99.9% sure no senators and no House of Delegates or House of Representatives people are typing those bills up. So there's people in the back end writing 1,400-page bills, sneaking stuff in, and the senators aren't reading it, and then they have to go vote on it. So they're probably relying on their advisors anyway, and it's like, our people don't even know what they're really voting for.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
If they got on a podcast,
yeah.
If you took a politician, got them on a podcast, like impromptu, and they just voted on a bill, and you pulled out a bill, and you'd be like, "Hey, what's in this bill?"
Yeah,
they'd be like, "Oh, this isn't CNN. This isn't Fox."
Yeah,
you know, they'd be like, I'm leaving. I'm not doing this. I'm not coming down to your level. Listen, 1-page bills. That's it.
Keep it simple.
You know, because most of the stuff that we're voting for, like, not everything, but most of it, pretty simple stuff sometimes. You know what I mean? At least the major point of the bill. When you add the 500 other things at the end of the bill, yeah, of course it's going to be 1,400 pages.
Yeah, we'll never do this, and this is kind of a joke, but like there almost needs to be like a multiple choice test that the senator has to take to be like, do you know what you're voting on? You
Yeah.
have to get at least an 80% on this test if you get to vote. If you can't pass the quiz, you can't vote on the bill anymore. I bet, you know what? I bet that first time you do that, there'd be like one person who passed it. They're the only vote.
If they did that, they'd put like all of them in a room, and then they start cheating off each other. They'd be like, what was on this bill? They're not talking. They have to separate them. Nah, man. They would, you know what? If they did that, they would never pass.
They would never pass.
They would never pass those. If you're like, you have to get 80% on what's on this bill, they'd be like, we're not voting today.
We're not voting today because we haven't read it. Which is crazy. Like, they don't read what they vote on.
Like, what's on that?
Pretty soon they're going to be chat GPTing it for the answer, and it's going to be like, guys.
ChatGPT is actually very relevant today.
Okay, interesting. But, and you know, I thought of some solutions. I tried to come up with something that everyone can agree on. So maybe, you know, I'd be interested to see what people out there think, but like, I genuinely don't see how someone could disagree with the points that were listed there. Nothing in there is controversial. Nothing in there is partisan. Nothing in there is trying to help one side more than the other. All it's doing is having a level of accountability for our congressional members that they stop focusing on trading. The whole point is that they really shouldn't be focused on trading, and they should be doing it. And maybe this is a side rant, but I think most of America would agree that, like, okay, let me talk about me personally. When I think about everything going on right now, I was thinking about it and I was like, so much is wrong right now, and I think we all feel it. Like, for instance, I don't trust the government, but I believe in the United States of America. I don't trust our politicians, but I believe in our political system and democracy. And it goes further than that. I don't believe our education system is educating us, but I believe that America is the greatest nation in the world to raise a child in because it gives them the most future opportunity. And by and large, I would say that most Americans agree with that sentiment. And the thing is, maybe this is a thing about America that I've always admired, but when they see an enemy to America, like, Americans always conquer our enemy. And there's this weird thing that's gone on lately, and I think everyone feels it, where it's like, there's this like silent enemy that's come into America, and it's from the top down. It's gotten into our political system and our government, and it's like almost like creeping into the American household. And I truly believe once America like realizes this and like recognizes that this enemy's here, they're going to wake up and say, we need to fight this, and the tide's going to start changing. But something's not right now, and it starts at the top, and we all need to like start implementing like solutions because it's wonky right now.
Very wonky. Very wonky.
So,
okay.
Starts with stopping trading, but I don't think it ends there.
And just to preface this, you know, these are just a couple guys chopping it. These are our ideas. We've never, you know what I'm saying, like, been in Congress, you know, the federal Congress. And as of right now, we have no intentions of doing that. But at the same time, we care about the United States of America.
I do.
And we're just talking about these things. We're just talking about these things and some thoughts. And if you have thoughts, you're more than welcome to comment and let us know what you think. And we can take those things into consideration, because we try not to live in echo chambers. We try to just, we try to talk things out, right? Because nobody's perfect. And part of being a human being is learning and constantly thinking and challenging yourself with ideas. Like, we could have these opinions today, and then if something proves us completely wrong and it's genuine and we learn that there is a better solution, we're always open to adapting. And I think that's the best way for human beings to be. Constantly learning, constantly adapting, and, you know, constantly challenging their thought process and even sometimes their values. But at the same time, you know, we're just guys chopping it. We're just talking.
The one thing I will say, and this will kind of be the last point on this item here, is just like, I feel like the more we think about things and the more we talk about them, the more we start coming up with ideas. And like, purely just having conversations and being able to speak freely about things you feel passionately about is one of the inherent rights of being a citizen in America, and I think that it is something we need more of. It feels like sometimes we're being shut down from being able to think and speak and conversate with things, and not everything's always going to be right, and sometimes we're wrong when we say something, but that's okay. It's okay to be wrong on something, but if you're exploring and challenging ideas, that's a good thing. We shouldn't be stagnant. We should constantly be thinking, how can we make this better? How can we do things differently? So for me, on congressional trading, that's how I did it. I came up with the solution of, here's 5 things. Why Congress doesn't pass this or won't pass this, I don't know. I've given my ideas. I'm sure others out there have ideas too, and speak freely. Speak freely. Because it's the one thing I think we all agree on is we might not agree on the solution, but we agree on the problem, which is Congress is trading too much.
Speak freely, America.
There you go. So that's my topic.
All right.
I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay.
What's your topic for today?
Well, we'll talk about something we both have, special interest in. We both kind of work in the field, but we're going to talk about housing, right? Right now in America, there's a big issue with a housing shortage. There's not enough houses for everybody, and it's creating a big demand. And housing affordability, you see it all over the news. It's just not affordable for as many Americans as it has been in the past. Now, there are different economic cycles. Things go up, things go down. But I was thinking, I just had some ideas. And Teo, I'm gonna talk about some things that I've learned. So, did a little research.
Good.
According to the fiscaldatatreasury.gov, in fiscal year, follow me. All right, follow me. In fiscal year 2022, the government spent $6.27 trillion with a T, trillion.
I did not know that.
We spent money on, and I'll just talk about some of the things: Social Security, healthcare, defense, Medicare, income security, net interest for veterans, transportation community, a bunch of things. It's a giant list. I'm not going to go over everything. So, and I'm just telling you things I've observed. I'm not telling you whether we should and shouldn't be doing these things. I'm just telling you. We have spent billions of dollars bailing out banks. Billions of dollars bailing out banking institutions. Why we had to bail out these banking institutions is a whole different discussion. I'm just saying what we've had to do.
It happened. Yep.
It happened. We have spent money on war. We have spent money on tearing down other countries. We have spent money on building up other countries. I'm not telling you whether any of those things were good or bad. I'm just telling you something we've done. So, right now, there are 82 million single-family homes in America that are occupied. Out of those homes, about 1.5 million are for sale. Now, if you do the math there, you'll see why the demand is so high for homes and why the prices for homes are so unaffordable. So, one thing that I thought, and I looked into it, now our government subsidizes houses. We have Section 8 programs. We have different programs to help people get loans. We have different programs that help people with housing in some sense to get to the path of homeownership. But the issue right now that's the most daunting thing is there just aren't enough houses right now on the market to buy. So I thought, what if we just built more houses, right? What if we, 6.2 trillion, what if we took a few billion, not a little amount, but a few, and we invested it back into America? We built some houses. So I said, how could I come up with these numbers? I'll be honest, guys. I'm not a mathematician. So I asked ChatGPT.
That's where it relates back in.
So I had ChatGPT do some numbers. So my thought was, what if we built a bunch of starter homes in America, right? And I don't mean starter homes like some people want starter homes like 5-bedroom, 3,000 square feet with a big balcony, giant deck. No. Nothing wrong with that. But homes that were 1,400 square feet and anywhere between 2 to 4 bedrooms. So my thought process when I asked ChatGPT is to estimate the cost of building 300,000 single-family homes in America each with an average size of 1,400 square feet. Now, you also, and I will admit, you'll have to factor for different markets. The price of building homes in every state and even every county can be different, but this is a rough estimate. So it talks a lot about like all that goes into it, but it boils down to this: $63 billion
To build what?
to build 300,000 homes. 300,000 homes for $63 billion. Now, a lot of people will say, Miguel, that's a lot of money. And you're right. It is a lot of money. But here's what I'll say. We pay a lot of taxes. We pay a lot of taxes. And I think a majority of Americans can say they don't feel like they're getting good return on investment. Now, if you build homes, especially if you build them correctly, right? We're assuming they don't do a chop shop job. You would be doing a couple things. It would provide jobs for American workers and builders, and it would increase the supply of single-family homes, easing the path to home ownership for Americans. So, as we said, 1.5 million homes are for sale right now. Let's just say they were able to get it done with a year, and that's 300,000 homes. That'd be an increase of supply of homes on the market as of right now for about 20%.
20% increase?
20% increase. Now, obviously, that may not solve everything, but it would put a dent. And this is something that, Americans can hold on to in the long term. There's now a house in America. There's now something that provides value to, not necessarily one person, but several people, right? And this is something that could be very important. It's something you can hold on to. It's something that can last generation after generation. Something to consider when we're looking into this. So if we increase the amount of homes in America, obviously the market would get better. Like I mentioned before, all of these things would help with they would help with the amount of you get my point. It would definitely help a lot in America. And that is my initial point. Build more homes. These things are tangible assets, right? This isn't like a stimulus check, right? People got a stimmy. We spent how many billions of dollars on that, and the money's gone.
That'd be a good question. Eugene, can you Google how much money was given in stimulus checks during COVID? Because that's a really good point. So I'm going to have some, not necessarily pushback, but I'm going to try to see, hey, let me poke some holes in your idea and see if you proposed a solution, but let me come at the solution a bit.
Yeah.
And then while he's looking that up, because you're saying $60 billion or $63 billion, $65 billion gets you 300,000 houses, right? So that would be roughly, it looks like am I reading it? No, that's not right. But that would be funding coming from the people, right? So they're going to say the initial pushback is going to be from the taxpayer. Why am I paying for other people's houses? So that's going to be your challenge. But I have a few questions. How would you tactically implement this? Who's building these houses?
So the building would be contracted out, right? Just like in the defense industry, it's contracted out to Lockheed Martin, Boeing, all these different things. So it would put money into small business owners' hands.
Okay.
You could have small business owners going for bids. And then I remember my train of thought on this. So one thing we could do is put a price cap on these homes. So, and also put stipulations into who can buy the homes. Now, my thought process was part of the problem in the United States right now with housing affordability is there are a lot of investors buying up homes. You hear about BlackRock buying up homes. You hear about Vanguard buying up homes. You hear about Goldman Sachs buying up homes. These homes would be unavailable to investor institutions.
Primary residence owners only.
Primary residence owners only. And my thought process is, and obviously if this ever got picked up, you can tweak it if necessary. But my thought process is, if someone already owns a home and you're trying to buy one of these price capped homes for somebody who already can't afford a home, you're out the race.
First time home buyer.
Not first time home buyer. Because what if you inherited a home and now you're buying another home?
But
now you got two homes. But you already have a home. So you have to only have one property. This would be people who have zero properties.
Okay. So never
you can't
owned a home primary residence buyers.
Right. So you can't be a rich person whose dad left them 5 homes and you're like, hey, I want to buy one of these super cheap homes.
Yeah.
You have to be somebody who doesn't own any property already. This is for people who really struggle with housing affordability. I mean, I think the average home as of today is about somewhere like $434,000. I think I read that. That can be fact checked, but I know it's higher than it's ever been. And for a lot of people, it's just very difficult. If you look back in the 80s and 90s, interest rates at certain points were high, but the homes weren't 400,000.
Affordability has become a challenge for Americans.
It's a huge challenge.
First of all, it's hard to qualify to get a home, and then if you do, the amount of kind of strain it's going to put on your budget isn't in proportion to how it used to be. Now, I still believe in homes as an asset and as a long-term investment, even if you're just a primary residence owner. But I will say, comparatively to other times, affordability's been impacted. So you're saying it's small business owners who are going to actually be building the homes through a contracting bid process. Where are they building these homes?
Across America.
Okay.
Across America.
Where are they getting the land from?
That is something that they can work out, because we don't have the complete solution, but it's a thought. This is a work in progress. So it would vary state by state. It would vary by where the housing demand is.
Mm-hmm.
Because in some places, like, there's just nowhere to build, right? There's nowhere to build. So you'd have to, local ordinances would have to use their discretion. So if we're talking about a federal funding for state by state,
okay,
and you split the money up state by state, and try to figure out how it would do. But that's what I say. These are rough estimates. There's no way for somebody with just a laptop who's never studied math to figure out exactly how the money will work.
But it's the solution you're proposing.
It's a solution we're proposing.
Let's have America build American homes.
And for people, and here's another thing that some people may not be aware of. America can do this. Think about this. Right now, China has the exact opposite problem as us. They have roughly like 60 to 80 or I think 90 million vacant homes. They have too many homes.
Yeah.
Housing prices are down. The fact that they have too many homes and we have too few, you almost want to think we might as well just buy some of those and transport it over here. But obviously, feasibility and all that. But who knows? I don't know how they make their homes. China's very
I saw
innovative.
This crazy video about them just knocking down homes. It was like these big apartment high rises, and they're literally just demolishing them because they're like, we don't need the homes anymore.
They're like,
it's crazy. I'll have to send you the video because it's like they built too many, and they're like, how do we they're they got 2 people podcasting in China. They're like, how do we solve the housing problem? We have too many. And they were like, knock them down. And we're like, and you're like, build more.
Build more. It's really that simple. America has the capability to do that. We have so many people in America who are skilled laborers. And I think it's just a matter of actually implementing these solutions, giving incentives for people to go into that field. And I think it can be done. I think it can be done. We're the greatest country in the world. There's a country out there that if there was no country, if every country in the world was having this problem, it'd be like, okay, maybe it's a worldwide thing. China has the opposite problem.
Yeah.
China has the opposite problem. So it can be done. Am I saying build 60 million homes? No. I'm saying build 300,000.
When you say it like that, it's not that unreasonable. It's, hey, add some inventory that are because I think the other problem is that everyone's trying to get like top dollar for it. So like sellers are doing it, turning into a bidding more. And at the end of the day, we're both in the field. We see that a seller, by and large, will go with the strongest, cleanest offer. And a lot of times that has to come down with price. But when you have price capped houses, and I haven't done nearly the research into kind of thinking behind how this would actually practically work, but if it's a price capped house, so you don't have a bidding war and it's more of an application process, that solves a lot of buyer demand. I guess the only question then is, how are you going to screen who gets it and who doesn't?
Yeah, well, that would go into a different regulatory bar. Here's the thing, and I get it. I know people are going to watch this and be like, but the money hasn't mattered. We literally can't pass a resolution. I don't want to hear about the money for this, but we have hella money for all types of bullshit, okay? Let's spend some money on Americans. Let's open a new line of credit. Let's build some houses. I mean, and this is a side note. Eugene, did you ever find out how much money they spent on stimmies?
Yeah, how much?
$5 trillion trillion to households and 931 billion to individuals.
$931 billion were given in stimulus checks.
We can build some houses.
Now, hold on. You're saying that when the pandemic started, we created $931 billion worth of $500 stimmy checks?
That might also include PPP loans.
But even so.
Even so, we can build some houses.
That's $1 trillion.
We can build some houses.
And then didn't you say there was some more added to it too?
New
That was
New York Times.
That was to individuals.
Yeah,
that wasn't PPP loans. That was
Wow.
individuals. $900 billion to that, and we're talking about $65 billion to make a house. Like I'm probably one of the more fiscally conservative people where I think we shouldn't be going crazy with our spending. But if you're telling me we've given out $500 checks for $900 billion to Americans, where there isn't an American out today who still has that money that they're using, it's gone. It evaporated. They don't have it anymore. And for $65 billion, less than 10%, you know, what is that, like 1%?
Yeah.
For 1%, we can build 300,000 homes, employ actual skilled laborers, and provide housing to first-time home buyers who have never owned a house together, and give them a part of the American dream, which is owning part of America. It makes sense to me. That makes a lot more sense than giving everyone $500 and saying, go have some fun money, go spend it on Amazon and make someone else rich.
And we're going to tax you.
And they're going to tax you.
And they're going to tax you.
Yeah.
Listen, man, I don't want to hear about, there's just not enough money. We might shut down October 1st because there's not enough money because we spend too much money. Build some houses, man.
Build some houses.
Build some houses, man.
You know, when you first started talking through it, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't as sold. But as you talk through it, employing Americans, helping our infrastructure, giving first-time Americans a chance at home ownership, and then when you compare the benefits to those to money we're spending in other places, yeah, I think, like you said, the return on your taxpayer dollar goes a lot further when you can build up communities in America, make Americans homeowners, make them more invested in the country, as opposed to having $900 billion give a $500 check. It doesn't weigh out to me. I think that that's a good investment. Let's make America develop, like actually better than it was before. The $900, I don't know where it went. It's like I said, the money evaporated. Who knows how it's spent, but it didn't raise up America. 300,000 good quality homes, skilled laborers being able to feed their families, Americans being able to rest their head in a house that they own now and are part of the American dream. That you sold me on it. You sold me on it. If I was voting, you got my vote.
All right, I got your vote. Were you, by the way, we forgot to double back. Were you able to get the first search we had you do?
Yeah, the only thing I saw they did was the Stock Act, but that was in 2012.
The Supreme Court?
The stopping for stopping trading and for Congress, right?
Yeah.
But you were looking for Supreme Court rulings.
Yeah, and these Supreme Court rulings on stocks. Okay.
Interesting. So
That might be a wash.
Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But
Yeah.
I know that there's in the last one, I don't have it in front of me, there was actually a law or bill that had some regulation around their trading, but that tied more into the insider trading piece. And I looked up another one, and there was another one that was being proposed, but it's too complicated. They didn't pass it. It's been proposed for a year, and they haven't passed it. 5 rules, pass it. Point 1. Point 2, build 300,000 homes for $65 billion and get it done.
Yeah.
You know?
And if it's a little more, it's a little more. If it's a little more, it's a little more.
Well, the more important thing, and that ties really well into the next one, is it's got to get done. It's not, hey, designate this money and then have it take 5 years to do it. $65 billion authorized in 1 year. It takes 3 months to build a home, maybe 4 months. Get it done in a year. I want 300,000 homes on the market in 2024.
Deloitte is going to be like, we build homes.
BlackRock's going to be like, we own homes. We own all the homes. So it's interesting.
Cool. So you have another topic. It has to do with transportation and how we could enhance the transportation in this country.
Yes. So anyone who has spent enough time with me has probably heard my train rant. I live in Northern Virginia, and We have Amtrak where I am. That is the train system. I've taken the train up to New York before, and I know that the train runs to a few other cities. That's the only time I've taken it, but it's very slow and it's nice. Like when I got on the train, I was like, oh, I kind of like the train experience. You get to sit down. You don't have to think. You don't have to go through airport security. You just walk up, you sit down on your train, and you get moving. Wasn't the fastest thing in the world, wasn't the cheapest thing in the world, but it got it done. And compared to the Greyhound bus, I was like, the train is a nice alternative. Compared to taking a flight to New York City, I was like, the train is a nice alternative. Compared to driving and having to do it myself and pay the tolls, I was like, the train is a nice alternative. So it's always made me think I like trains. At the same time, I did a backpacking trip in Southeast Asia when I graduated from college. This was probably 2016, so I'm dating myself on that, but it was 2016, and I went to Japan. And when I went to Japan, one of the first things I did was I landed in Tokyo, and I had to go to Kyoto. No, I went to Osaka first, so I went from Tokyo to Osaka, and I took one of their trains. Miguel, I swear on my life, it was a life-changing experience. It was the fastest, smoothest, most efficient experience I ever had. I fell asleep in one city because I was tired because of the flight. I woke up in the next city, and it was so quick. The train was so smooth, I didn't even know I was on a train, and it did it in no time flat. So ever since that moment, I've always seen the possibilities of trains. I've said trains, America was one of the first true developers of trains. When you look back in American history and you really look at it, we created a railroad system in America, and it helped us develop as a nation. Right? Even to today, if you actually look behind the numbers, trains are one of the biggest cargo carrying components in America for how we move materials internally in the U.S. as opposed to ships on the sea. So I've always said trains are this incredible vehicle for how we can do things both business-wise as well as personal transportation-wise, and we use the Amtrak, which if you've been on an Amtrak is a train that probably dates back to development of America days. It's just an old, slow train compared to these bullet trains that are out there. So I started doing some research, and I looked into some countries. So Japan's the OG. They were the first one to do kind of a high-speed rail system. And their fastest train, how fast do you think their fastest train goes? Miles per hour.
150?
198 miles per hour.
That's fast.
That's fast.
That's fast.
They were the first ones. 6 decades ago, they started this program. 60 years ago, they started their high-speed rail system from my research, and they've only enhanced it. It's smoother, faster, cleaner, runs on electricity, all of those factors. So Japan's the OG. Europe's another country. How fast do you think their fastest train goes?
170?
Trick question. It's the same as Japan, 198 miles an hour. But what's interesting about Europe and what they've used their train system for is that the EU, because they have the EU and you have intertransportation between the countries, you can hop on a train in one country and be in another country in a couple hours. You use this train to travel country-wise, but they're traveling at 198 miles an hour, so it's an alternative to planes. But they're using it as inter-country travel. There are some other countries that have really had some big progress. South Korea, Taiwan, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and even Indonesia. So there are countries that are all implementing high-speed railway systems since Japan did. And then the last one I did some research into, which was China. So China has the world's largest high-speed railroad in the world. They have 26,000 miles of railway laid down across the country. So they have the largest amount of high-speed tracks that are laid down. Their fastest train, guess how fast do you think it goes?
250 miles an hour.
You are pretty close today. 267 miles an hour is their fastest train. So they have 26,000 miles of rail laid down in their country. Their trains go 267 miles an hour. And to give you perspective of how that works, you can travel in 8 minutes, 19 miles. So in 8 minutes, you've gone 19 miles down the road. That's really fast, right? So then I looked up another stat. How wide do you think America is? End to end, furthest point in America. How many miles?
Man, I'm going to botch this. I don't know, like
You've been on spot on.
15,000 miles?
No. The widest points from East Coast to West Coast in America, 2,892 miles.
Oh, I'm way off. 2,000?
2,892 miles wide at its widest point. Maybe, fact check me on that. How wide is America? But that's what I learned. So, if you were to divide that out, so China has 26,000 miles of railway, right? America is 2,892 miles wide. That means if you divide it out, that you could take the amount of rail lines laid down in China and go down and back across America 4 times with their high-speed railroad system. They have enough rails to go down from East Coast to West Coast to East Coast 4 times. That's how much they have. And America is behind. I named all these countries: China, Japan, Europe, South Korea, Taiwan, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and even Indonesia. None of these countries, I would say, are more technologically advanced than America, but for some reason, these countries are starting to invest and develop in high-speed rails, and America isn't. And I was looking at it, and I was like, well, why is that? Well, one, I will say, and this isn't an excuse, but America does have a pretty extensive highway system. So there is an alternative compared to some of these other countries where you can drive. It's an alternative. So I'm trying not to be biased here. So there is some reason why it is. But still, we haven't invested as much in it. So America does have some plans to do high-speed rail systems, but this ties back to our other point, which is the problem with America right now, which is regulation. Did you know, most people probably don't know this, did you know that back in 2008, California approved a $10 billion investment into a high-speed rail system that was supposed to basically go from LA to San Francisco? That was going to be invested in it. They put $10 billion in 2008 in a bond to invest in that, and they said, hey, we're going to create this high-speed rail system to do that. Do you know when it's projected to be finished now?
2050.
Not that bad, but they have delayed it multiple times, and now they're projecting 2030 to go from LA to San Francisco. We're not talking about to America from the East Coast and West Coast back. It's going to take us from 2008 to 2030. We're not talking about that. We're not saying 22 years to do this. They're saying from LA to San Francisco, it's going to take until 2030 to get this project done. And that's largely because they say there's lack of funding or it's because of regulations. Well, that's a problem. Because if it's going to take us 22 years to lay tracks down to go from LA to San Francisco, how long is it going to take us to create a really interconnected high-speed rail system which benefits America if we can't do that in one state? There's a problem with regulation going on right now where America can't even build when we want to. We have the laborers, we have the technology, we have the resources, but we're not building it. And I think that's a problem. So I think there's a lot of countries out there that are not better than America, but that are implementing solutions faster than America. And even if you're the smartest, greatest, most powerful country in the world, if you're not actually doing things, you get left behind and you get left in the dust. And that's what I see happening, at least on the train system with our railroads, is we're regulated to death and we're not building when we want to build. And that's a problem. But that's kind of my start of my rail rant.
That's just a start?
It's just the start. I could go for hours. But do you have any thoughts? I don't know. I threw a lot of stats at you. So any thoughts on?
A lot of stats. We're still downloading the stats and processing up to our hard drive. I looked into the train talk. I looked into the train talk, and I saw that there are essentially 6 big things that have kind of stopped trains from becoming, exactly what you said, like high-speed rails in America. And it's funding, infrastructure, regulatory and environmental analysis or approval, political support, regional coordination. So, one county from another county, from state to state, and the existing transportation infrastructure. And that one is interesting because there's already instructing railways that I feel like is probably part of the reason, not a good reason, but part of the reason people have been hesitant. And I haven't looked into it, but I can only imagine the airlines wouldn't be super happy if all of a sudden you could take a train from DC to Cali. Then, now there's competition, right? Because now you're thinking, do I really need to take a plane to New York, or should I just take a high-speed train? Because a plane, we talked about this the other day. Do we want to go and see like a Patriots game? Should we fly or take a train? And you were like, bro, why would we just fly? 2 hours long. And I was like, how much would a train take? And I think it was like 8 hours.
It was like 9 hours. Yeah.
9 hours. Ridiculous. If we had high-speed rails, we'd probably get there in like a couple hours.
Yeah.
It'd probably be the same amount as a plane, maybe even faster if they were really with it.
Security and all of that.
You don't have to do
stuff.
all that. You're getting on a train. You're out there, and you don't have the risk of crashing in an airplane. And I think a lot of people would like that. I know personally, I would. Every time I get on a plane, my heart beats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'd much more prefer to get on a train. But that being said, a train derailing at 250 miles an hour also isn't very attractive. But I take my chances on a train over my chances on an airplane, if I'm being for real. But those are some of the things. And in China, I saw that they've spent about 300 billion roughly on all of their high speed rails. But according to I can't find my source right here because I'm losing it. Oh, the Paulson Institute. They said that there's an annual return on investment of the $300 billion of about 6.5%.
Wow.
So if we're talking about solutions that just benefit everyday citizens who would prefer to just hop on a train to go to different places, I mean, sometimes a plane is like they're expensive. Trains sometimes can be, depending on where you're going, more, you'll get more bang for your buck, depending. But I think part of the issue would probably be the competition factor, as well as all the other things that I mentioned.
But don't you think that's a problem?
That's a problem for sure.
That we live in a country where we know there are solutions that are there, but we have to fight the lobbying groups of each industry who are actively trying to hold back the development of America because of their profit. Like you just said it. Okay, we want to build trains and the airline industry is lobbying against it. You want to do this and the oil industry is lobbying against it. You want to do that and the politicians are regulating it to death. Like we live in a country where there's so many things that we all agree on that should be done. And there are so many speed bumps or different challenges and obstacles we have to jump through just to get to the point we know we're going. We know the destination. The destination is we should have high-speed rails in America, but at the same time, we know that there's so many internal, we're not talking about other countries holding us back, internal challenges through lobbying groups and politicians and all of these different people who are stopping the flow of American development. America was great at one time because we were building better, faster, and stronger than anyone else in the world. We were developing at such a high rate that no one could keep up with us. We were getting stuff done, and we were getting stuff done people didn't think was possible. And now we have ideas, and we're like, oh, there's no way we got this lobbying group, or oh, there's no way it's going to take too long. What happened?
Yeah, that county's not going to be cool with it.
Yeah. It's like we got in the way of ourselves in a certain way, and it's like, what happened? Honestly, what happened where we were developing so fast and so great and so we had so much innovation? America has always had so much innovation compared to other countries, and now we're like laggards in certain things where it's like the innovation's still there. I don't think America's lost the innovation. I think what's happened is the innovation is there, and then it gets stopped by other external factors that are American factors.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The regulation is a problem.
Killing it.
Yeah.
Regulation and lobbying and groups that don't have America's best interests at heart. It's either bottom lines or self-interest or whatever. Like, it helps us all. If you really boil it down, aside from the airline industry and yada, 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 but if we really had an incredible high-speed rail system in America, that only helps America. We're not worse off for having a good railway system.
I agree. I would love a high-speed rail system. And I think most people, unless you're a wet towel, you're gonna love high-speed rails.
It's the smoothest ride there is.
Yeah, I mean, even regular rails are great.
Yeah.
But if you could make them a little faster, it'd be more efficient, right? I know if there were high-speed rails, I would have gone to more places in America.
Yeah.
It
helps with, like I said, if you can start transporting materials, think about how much more our supply chains could be benefited from it. It helps with interstate commerce, where now, hey, you have more transportation happening, which means there's more tourism happening in America. It can help connect families in America where you might not have seen someone who's in another state because it was too expensive to fly there or took too long, or someone was scared of flying, like you said, and they just won't get on a plane. Well, guess what? Now here's another solution. It only helps America. No one is hurt by having a better interconnection with America.
And another point on top of that, think about how much it would open opportunities for people who don't want to live in big cities. Like if you had, and we talked about this before, but if you had a rail system from Richmond to DC that could get people from Richmond into DC in like 30 minutes, like there would be so much opportunity for people who have these challenges in housing affordability to be able to live like 70, 80 miles away from their employment and still actually be able to be in the office in person if they could get there in 30 minutes. People already commute an hour to work, an hour back from work, and then they have to deal with parking and, of course, the traffic. But this would open that door up. And people hear all the time, they look on Zillow and they're like, oh my gosh, there's this house, but it's in the sticks. It's 4-bedroom. It's my dream home, but it's $200,000. But it would be a 2-hour car ride or 3 or 4-hour car ride. But if you had these high speed rails, you could get from one city to another 30 minutes, and it would open the doors for so many people who may not even think I can make it in a big city. Some people don't want to be in a big city. Some people want those opportunities, but they don't want to leave their families. They love their families, and they don't want to move into big cities. Like some people, there's a big dream in America of like, oh, move to the big city. Not everybody wants that. Some people love where they come from and want to be there, and they move out of pure necessity. And it would cut down a lot of those issues that people have, even people who may not have even gone to college, maybe people who got certifications in tech and they didn't have to go to college and, 19, 20 years old, they're already qualified to get those jobs, but they'd be 20 years old in New York, 20 years old in DC. This would open up those opportunities. It, like you said, it does nothing but benefit the people.
If I was in charge, which I'm not, but if I was in charge, I would do a use case. And I would say we're building a high-speed rail system from Richmond to DC. And the difference is we're not going to have a California version 12-year plan. We're going to get this done in 2 years, and it is going to be something that the rest of the country looks at and says, wow, look what we did. We built something where now everyone from Richmond to DC benefits, and it can be done. I looked at this kind of example from back in the day, and I think this is one of the best examples of American ingenuity and determination that's happened. If you look back, there was a speech that John F. Kennedy did back in 1961, where there was a space race going on, and there was a lot going on with Russia and the U.S., and he went out and said a speech, and he said, the U.S. is going to commit itself to achieve a goal. It is going to build, before the end of a decade, a spaceship that's going to land on the moon and return safely back to the Earth with its passengers safe. And it made that claim in 1961, and in 1969, they did that. So he made a clear, concise goal, something that had never been done before, something that seemed impossible and unachievable, that couldn't be attained, and America committed itself to a simple goal and got it done. And I was thinking, and I was like, wow, how incredible would that be if America did that again? As opposed to letting things stop us and hold us back, we did the same thing, but we did it with something that actually benefits Americans. Not that the spaceship didn't benefit Americans, but it was an example of the ingenuity. But I'm saying, what if we turned around and said, we are going to build the world's greatest high-speed rail system that is going to be the best, fastest, most energy efficient and clean energy rail system that is going to be laid down in the world, and we're going to finish it by the end of the decade. And I would venture to say most Americans' knee-jerk reaction would be like, oh, we can't do that. But why? Like we went to the moon and back when it had never been done before, and we did that in 8 years. Why can't America get behind a goal and have everyone get out of the way of stopping us from actually achieving this and doing something that benefits Americans? And then the rest of the world has to be on edge. And they're going to look at America and be like, wow, they're back on their stuff. And we've seen this America before, and this America's scary. They're not someone you want to mess with. Let's start putting some intimidation and fear in the world that America is the greatest country in the world. And when we set our minds on a goal, it gets done no matter what.
Did we go to the moon? I'm just joking.
Man.
Joke,
You're
joke,
crazy,
joke.
bro.
No, I'm just joking. But hey, no, that's a great point, and I think America can do it. No. I know America can do it. We just gotta get serious. We gotta get serious. We gotta pull ourselves together. We gotta talk, and people gotta really want it. And it goes back to our early episode. Think about who we're voting for. Do they really want to accomplish things in America, or are they holding us back? I
completely agree. And not just that. Can we come together as Americans to get behind it? If we make this a partisan issue, if we make this something that one political party wants and the other doesn't, there's our roadblock right there. It's only going to happen if every American committed to it and was like, this is something that's good for America, and we as Americans don't even think about party. We as Americans want this and want to get this done just as a show of force to the rest of the world. You do that, you put everyone else on the edge of their seat. I'm telling you, it shows that America, when united, is still the greatest force in the world. It's still a force to be reckoned with, and you really don't want to mess with America, because if we can start coming together, we're an untamed beast. Like it is something that other people are going to remember who we are, and I think we may have lost our way a little bit, but it's not something that's lost for good. It's just something that we have to come together and stop focusing on the differences. Let's pick a goal we all want to do together, and let's get it done.
Who could be against trains?
Train talk. So,
all right.
What did we talk about today? We said no more congressional trading, building homes by Americans for Americans, and building a railway system that makes the world on edge. If you disagree with those three things, I got to question your intentions, because all of those things I genuinely believe are good for America, and all of those things I genuinely agree that by and large, the vast majority of Americans are on the same page on. So maybe I'm wrong, but I believe it with the bottom of my heart.
I agree. So, buddy, are we wrapping up this episode?
I think I've ranted myself away, so I don't got anything left unless you got something.
Well, thank you again to all of our 70 subscribers on YouTube. I don't even know if you guys are all watching it, but if you are, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys. And thank you to the other people who have showed up on our shorts to give love and support. If you ever come back this episode, once you actually become a subscriber, thank you as well. Shout out to Pope.
Shout out to Pope. Peace, brother.